Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and today we are playing Brawl with Explorers of Ixalan using the Throne of Eldraine Brawl decks. We'll be playing with standard rules for 4 players, so it's 30 life, and we'll get started by rolling to see who goes first. Sir Gwyn rolls 8, Chulane rolls 4, Korvold rolls 8, and Alela rolls 8, so it's a 3-way roll-off. Alela rolls 8 again. Sir Gwyn rolls 7. Korvold rolls 8, so we're continuing to roll off between Korvold and Alela. Korvold rolls 5. Alela rolls 10, so Alela will go first. We'll draw 7 cards apiece. Alela draws a Plains, Massacre Girl, Temple of Silence, Chemist's Insight, Island, Winged Words, and Watery Grave. This is all of the colors that we need. There's not much in the way of action, but we do have some card draw, and I think that might be enough to get us to keep this hand. Sir Gwyn draws an Arcane Signet, Temple of Triumph, Evolving Wilds, Embreth Skyblazer, Foulmire Knight, Wintermoor Commander, and Swamp. This has all of our colors and things to play, so we will keep this hand. Chulane draws 7. Draws a Incubation Incongruity, Steelbane Hydra, Island, Growth Spiral, Runaway Together, Firemind's Vessel, and Flower Flourish. We actually cannot keep this because we only have 1 land and no way to cast anything that we have in our hand, so we will mulligan using our free mulligan. Chulane draws a Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, Gyre Engineer, Steelbane Hydra, Island, Shark to Crab, and Hallowed Fountain. It's a little bit of a slow hand, but I think we can keep this one because we have the colors that we need and stuff to cast eventually. Korvold draws. He draws a Mountain, Judith the Scourge Diva, Thrashing Brontodon, Swamp, Jungle Hollow, Angrath, Captain of Chaos, and Swamp. It's not an ideal hand, but we do have enough going on here that we will keep it. Alela draws, gets a Mace of the Valiant. Alela will play the Temple of Silence tapped. It says Temple of Silence enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. So we'll take a look at the top card, which is an Azorius Guildgate. I think we're doing okay on lands here, so we're going to put this at the bottom and hope to get more action. And then Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn draws, gets a Boros Guildgate. Sir Gwyn will play the Guildgate tapped, and then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane draws, gets a Parhelion 2, and then we'll play the Evolving Wilds, tap it, sacrifice it, and then search for a forest. Put that onto the battlefield tapped, we'll shuffle, and then we'll pass the turn. Korvold draws, gets a Taste of Death, and then we'll play the Jungle Hollow tapped, and Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws, gets a Scoured Barrens. We'll play the Scoured Barrens tapped. When it enters the battlefield, we'll gain 1 life to go up to 31. And then you spend 1 mana to take a look at this tile. It says natural defenses. You create 2 Saproling tokens, and an opponent of your choice creates 1 Saproling token. Here's 2 Saprolings. We'll give Sir Gwyn the other Saproling. And then Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, gets a Shining Armor. Sir Gwyn will then play the Temple of Triumph tapped. We'll scry 1. We'll take the Venerable Knight, and I think we leave this one on top. And then we'll spend 1 mana to take a look at this tile over here. We get From the Mists. It says put a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. So we will take the Wintermoor Commander and play that. It is a Creature Human Knight with Death Touch. Wintermoor Commander's toughness is equal to the number of knights you control. Whenever a Wintermoor Commander attacks, another target knight you control gains indestructible until end of turn. And then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps, Chulane draws, gets a Leafkin Druid. We'll play the Island, and then we'll tap 2, and we'll play the Leafkin Druid. It's the 0/3 Elemental Druid. You can tap to add green. If you control 4 or more creatures, add 2 green instead. And then Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold untaps, Korvold draws, gets a Thorn Mammoth. Korvold will play a Swamp, and then Korvold will spend 1 mana to take a look at this tile here. He gets cannons to starboard. The next time you deal combat damage to the player on your right, draw a card. We'll spend another mana to take a look at this tile over here. We get Jungle's Bounty, create a Sapperling token, and then gain 2 life. Here's a Sapperling token. We gain 2 life to go to 32. And then Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws, gets a Conclave Tribunal. Alela will play an island, and then Alela will spend 3 mana to play Mace of the Valiant. It is an equipment, and it says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant and has Vigilance. Whenever a creature enters a battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant. It has 0 counters right now, so it just gives Vigilance. And there's no good attacks, and so Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, gets a Venerable Knight. Sir Gwyn will play a Swamp, and then Sir Gwyn will tap 2 mana to play the Arcane Signet. It is an artifact. It says tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. And then Sir Gwyn will attack Chulane with the Wintermoor Commander. Chulane will decline the block and will take 2 from the Wintermoor Commander to go to 28. And then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps, draws, gets a Tranquil Cove. Chulane will play the Tranquil Cove tapped, and then we'll tap 3 mana to play the Gyre Engineer. It is a 1/1 Vedalken Wizard, and you can tap it to add green and a blue. So we are completing ramp over here, and then Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold untaps, Korvold draws, gets a Golgari Finebroker. Korvold will play a mountain, and then we'll tap 3 mana to play Judith the Scourge Diva. She is a 2/2 human shaman. Other creatures you control get +1/+0, so the Sapperling is a 2/1. And then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith the Scourge Diva deals 1 damage to any target. Korvold will attack Chulane with the Sapperling. Chulane will take another 2 and go to 26. And then Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws, gets a Plains. Alela will play the Plains. We'll spend 1 mana to take a look at this tile over here. It is Rejuvenating Waters. You gain 4 life, and an opponent of your choice gains 2 life. We'll go up to 35, and we'll give Chulane 2 life. Chulane goes back up to 28. We'll put our scouting marker on this 3 tile, and then we'll spend 3 mana to cast Winged Words, which is a sorcery. It says this spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a creature with flying. We don't, and then draw 2 cards. We'll draw 2. We get a Command Tower and a Banish into Fable, and then Alela will pass the turn. At the end of Alela's turn, we'll tap the Boros Guildgate and the Arcane Signet, and then cast Shining Armor. It's artifact equipment with flash. When Shining Armor enters the battlefield, attached to target knight you control, equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has Vigilance. We'll attach it to the Wintermoor Commander, making it a 2/3 Death Touch with Vigilance. We'll untap. We'll draw. We get a Plains. We will play the Plains, and then we will attack Alela with the Wintermoor Commander. Alela will take 2 and go to 33. Then Sir Gwyn will tap out to cast both the Embereth Skyblazer, which is a 4/3 human knight. As long as it's your turn, Embereth Skyblazer has flying. Whenever Embereth Skyblazer attacks, you may pay 2 and a red. If you do, creatures you control get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of opponents that you have. And we'll also cast the Venerable Knight, which is a 2/1 human knight. Whenever Venerable Knight dies, put a -1/-1 counter on target knight you control. This makes the Wintermoor Commander a 2/5 with Death Touch, and then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps, Chulane draws, gets a Forest. Chulane will play the Hallowed Fountain tapped, and then we'll tap these 4 here to play Chulane, Teller of Tales from the command zone. Chulane is a 2/4 human druid with Vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. You can pay 3 and tap to return a target creature you control to its owner's hand. And then we'll tap the Gyro Engineer and spend 2 mana. 1 to take a look at this tile here, which is cannon support. The next time you deal combat damage to a player on your left, draw a card. And then we'll take a look at this one over here, which says Dusk's Embrace. The next time a creature you control dies, draw a card. And then we'll put our scouting token on this tile here, and Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold untaps. Korvold draws. Gets a Gluttonous Troll. Korvold will play the Swamp. And then Korvold will tap out and play the Gluttonous Troll. It is a 3/3 troll with trample. When Gluttonous Troll enters the battlefield, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. We have 3 opponents, and so we'll create 3 food tokens. Here's our food token. We'll use dice to represent the number of them that we have. We have 3. And then Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps. Removes this scouting token. Alela draws. Gets a Smothering Tithe. Alela will play the Watery Grave tapped, and then we'll tap out again to play a Smothering Tithe. It's an enchantment. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If that player doesn't, you create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. And then Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps. Sir Gwyn draws. Gets a Godless Shrine. Sir Gwyn will play the Godless Shrine and will pay 2 life to have it enter the battlefield untapped. Go down to 28. We'll tap out and play Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. She is a 5/5 legendary creature human knight with vigilance and menace. Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Equipment you control have equip knight 0. We refused to pay 2, and so Alela will get a treasure token. And then Sir Gwyn will attack Alela with the Embereth Skyblazer and the Wintermoor Commander. The Wintermoor Commander will give Embereth Skyblazer indestructible, and because we attacked with an equipped creature, we'll draw another card, which gets us a Corpse Knight, and then we cannot pay the Smothering Tithe, and so Alela will get another treasure token. Alela declines to block and will take 6 damage to go to 27. And then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps, draws, gets a forest. Chulane will play the command tower. We'll tap out for 8 mana and cast Parhelion 2. It is a legendary artifact vehicle, 5/5 with flying, first strike, and vigilance. Whenever Parhelion 2 attacks, create 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are attacking. And then Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold untaps, draws, gets a Bacon to a Pie. Korvold will attack Alela with the Gluttonous Troll. We'll get a treasure for Chulane drawing. We'll get a treasure for Korvold drawing. And we will just take the 3 from the Gluttonous Troll to go to 24. This will complete cannons to starboard, so we'll draw a card. We draw a Savvy Hunter, and we will decline to pay the tax, giving another treasure to Chulane. And then we will spend 1 mana to take a look at this tile. It says deal 2 damage to each opponent. Alela goes to 22. Sir Gwyn goes to 26. Chulane goes to 26. And then we'll spend 3 more mana and play the Savvy Hunter. It is a 3/3 human warrior. Whenever a Savvy Hunter attacks or blocks, create a food token, and then you may sacrifice 2 foods to draw a card. And then Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws, gets an Empyrean Eagle. Alela will play the command tower. This should have been removed. Alela will spend 3 mana to take a look at this tile here. It is Jade Reflection. Whenever you cast the next instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. And then we'll spend 5 mana tapping these 2 for black, sacrificing 2 treasures. To cast Massacre Girl, she is a 4/4 legendary creature human assassin with menace. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So the first layer gets -1/-1. which will kill 2 Saprolings, a Saproling and a Youthful Knight. The Youthful Knight will put a trigger on this stack to put a counter on another creature, and will target Sir Gwyn. This will kill the Gyre Engineer, and that will trigger Dusk's Embrace, drawing us a card, and we won't pay for the Smothering Tithe. This will also kill the Saproling token. Alela will get another treasure from this Smothering Tithe, and then we lost 4 other creatures, so we're going to -1/-1 another round. This will kill Judith the Scourge Diva, and she's a non-token creature, and she dies, and so she will target Alela's face. Alela takes 1 and goes to 21. So there are 4 more triggers of -1/-1 left. We'll do it again. This kills the Embereth Skyblazer, getting another trigger. There's 4 triggers left. This also kills the Leafkin Druid, getting another trigger. There's 5 triggers left. This will kill both of the Gluttonous Troll and the Savvy Hunter, so Korvold will sacrifice 2 foods to draw a card, and we will not pay Alela's Tithe, and then we'll lose the Savvy Hunter and the Gluttonous Troll, so there's 6 triggers remaining. Alela gets another treasure. Wintermoor Commander has run out of knights, so Wintermoor Commander dies. That is 7 more triggers remaining. That will kill Sir Gwyn, and that will kill Chulane. And Chulane will go to the command zone. Sir Gwyn will go to the command zone. And then also a counter gets put on the Mace of the Valiant. Alela will put the scouting token over here. Alela will sacrifice 4 treasures and then put Alela onto the battlefield. She is a 2/3 legendary creature fairy warlock with flying, death touch, and lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. And then Alela will pass a turn. Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, will pay the Smothering Tithe, will spend 2 mana to play the Corpse Knight. It is a 2/2 zombie knight. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. And then we'll play the Evolving Wilds. We'll crack the Evolving Wilds and go searching for a swamp. Put that onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle. We'll spend 2 mana to take a look at these 2 tiles. We get a High and Dry Pirate's Market. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. We'll also get the Study the 9 Rivers. The next time you draw a card, instead look at the top 4 cards, put 1 into your hand, the rest of the bottom of your library. And then we will discard the Bloodfell Caves to draw a card. At the end of the turn, we get a Rakdos Guildgate. And that was a downgrade. Sir Gwyn will also put the scouting token over here, and then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps. We will play a Forest. We'll play an Incubation Druid, which is an 0/2 Elf Druid. You can tap, add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. If Incubation Druid has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. And then we'll tap the remaining mana to cast the Sharkdo Crab. It is a 4/4 Fish Octopus Crab for 2 green and blue. You can adapt for 1, and whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Sharkdo Crab, tap a creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Then we will tap the Sharkdo Crab to crew the Parhelion. Oh, and we'll refuse to pay the tax to Alela, so Alela will take a token. And then we will attack Alela with the Parhelion, getting us 2 angels with vigilance that are also attacking, and these will also attack Alela for a total of 13 damage. Alela will chump the Parhelion with herself, sending her back to the command zone, and we'll take 8 to go to 13, and then Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold then taps, draws, gets a Sir Conrad the Grim. We'll play the Rakdos Guildgate tapped, and then Korvold will pass the turn. Alela untaps. Oh, and Alela will get another token from Korvold. Alela will draw, getting an island. We'll play the Plains. Alright, we are going to spend 6 mana, and we're going to cast Banish into Fable. It is an instant. When you cast this spell from your hand, copy it if you control an artifact, we do, and then copy it if you control an enchantment, we do. So we have 3 on the stack, and then we have Jade Reflection, which copies the spell, and then we'll copy it and copy it again. I believe that's how it works. And so we have 6 copies of this on the stack. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand times 6. And then you create 2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance. So we will return every creature on the battlefield to their owner's hands that belong to my opponents, as well as the Parhelion. Corpse Knight returns to Sir Gwyn's hands. The Angels vanish. The Parhelion returns to Chulane's hands. Incubation Druid and Shark Crab return to Chulane's hands. Alela will get 6 2/2 Knights with Vigilance. That'll trigger Mace of the Valiant 6 times to go up to 7 counters. Then Alela will attack Chulane with Massacre Girl. Chulane can't block, we'll go to 22. And then Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, gets an Integrity and Intervention. We'll spend the 2 mana so that Alela won't get the token. We'll pay a black and a white to play the Corpse Knight again. We'll play the Rakdos Guildgate tapped. This comes off. We'll spend 3 mana to take a look at the next tile, which is Secure the High Ground. Keep until your next turn. Creatures can't attack you. Oh, we should have triggered Study the 9 Rivers, so we missed that. So we're going to take this treasure token back, and we're going to look at the next 3. And then we'll choose one of these. Oh, it'll still be Integrity, Intervention, and we'll put the rest at the bottom. And then at the end of the turn, we will decline to use the Pirate's Market, and Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Chulane untaps. Chulane draws, gets a time wipe, and we will pay the tax. We'll play a forest, and then we'll spend all of our mana to play time wipe. It says return a creature to its owner's hand and then destroy all creatures. We won't return anything. Everything will get destroyed. Sir Gwyn loses the Corpse Knight. Alela loses Massacre Girl and all of her knights. And then Chulane will pass the turn. Now this should go back. Korvold untaps, draws, gets a Paradise Druid. Korvold will spend 2 mana to play the Paradise Druid and is kind of stuck on mana. And so Korvold will spend 1 mana to look at this tile here. Deal 2 damage to each opponent. Alela takes 2 and goes to 11. Sir Gwyn takes 2 and goes to 24. Chulane takes 2 and goes to 20. We'll put our scouting token on this 3 here. Oh, we'll also pay 2 so Alela doesn't get another treasure token. And then we'll pass the turn. Alela untaps. Alela draws. Gets a golden egg. Alela will play the island. Alela will pay 6 and return herself to the battlefield. And then we'll spend 2 mana to play a golden egg. When it enters the battlefield, we'll draw a card, which we get a Dismal Backwater. It also triggers Alela's fairy creation, and so we'll get a blue fairy token. Count this as our fairy. It's a 2/1 because of Alela, and then Alela will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps. Sir Gwyn draws, gets a Silverwing Squadron. We will pay the tax. Then we'll spend 6 mana to cast the Silverwing Squadron. It is a Star Human Knight with Flying and Vigilance. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, so it's a 1/1. Whenever it attacks, create a number of 2/2 White Knight creature tokens with Vigilance equal to the number of opponents that you have. And then we'll lose Secure the High Ground, and Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. The Mace of the Valiant should also have 2 more counters to go to 9, making it a +9/+9. Chulane will untap. Chulane will draw, gets a Plains. We will not pay the 2 and give Alela a treasure. We'll play the Plains, and then we'll tap out and play the Parhelion 2 again, and then Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold then taps. Korvold draws. We get a Moldavine Reclamation. Korvold will decline to pay Alela's tax, so Alela will get another treasure. And then we'll spend 5 mana to play the Moldavine Reclamation. It is an enchantment. It says whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. This will fall off, and we'll spend a mana and look at this tile here. It's cannon support. The next time you deal combat damage to the player on your left, draw a card. And then we will put our scouting token here, and we'll pass the turn. Alela untaps. Alela draws, gets a Corridor Monitor. Alela will play the Dismal Backwater tapped. Alela will pay 3 and attach Mace of the Valiant to the Fairy, making it a 10/10 Vigilant Flyer. Alela will tap 3 more and play the Empyrean Eagle. It is a 2/3 flyer, and other creatures you control get flying +1/+1. So now it is an 11/11, and Alela herself is a 3/4. And then we will attack Chulane with the Mace of the Valiant and the Artful Provocateur for a total of 14 damage. Chulane just has to take 14 to the face and go to 6. And then Alela will tap the water you gave the command tower and sacrifice 2 treasures to cast Conclave Tribunal. It says it has the ability to convoke, but we're ignoring that. When Conclave Tribunal enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Conclave Tribunal leaves the battlefield. We'll exile the Parhelion. And then Alela will pass the turn. We're back to Sir Gwyn, who will untap, draw, get a Bond of Discipline. We will pay the 2 mana for Smothering Tithe. We'll pay 3 more mana to send Foulmire Knight on an adventure. That'll draw us a card and we'll lose a life. Foulmire Knight on an adventure. We draw a card. We'll decline to pay the rent this time. We'll lose a life to go to 23. And then we will spend the remaining 3 mana to cast Bell of the Brawl, which is a 3/2 human knight with menace. Whenever Bell of the Brawl attacks, other knights you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. We'll go to the end of the turn and we'll use the high and dry. We'll discard the Bond of Discipline and draw a Colossus Hammer. And then Sir Gwyn will pass a turn. Chulane untaps. Chulane draws, gets a Firemind Vessel. We will decline to pay the tax. Alela will get a treasure. We'll spend 7 mana to recast Chulane. This falls off. We'll spend the last mana to take a look at this tile here. It's Plunder the Plunderers. Next time combat damage is dealt to you, create 2 treasure tokens. But Chulane does not have a good feeling about this, and Chulane will pass the turn. Korvold then taps. Korvold draws, gets a Golgari Guildgate. We'll play that tapped. It's a little late. We'll tap the Paradise Druid for green, tap the Jungle Hall for green, and we'll tap a Swamp to play a Thrashing Brontodon. We'll spend 1 to take a look at this tile. It sails unfurled. The next creature that enters the battlefield under your control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains haste until end of turn. And then we'll spend another 1 to look at this tile over here. It's Kansas Starboard. So now if I hit either player on the left or the right, we'll get a thing. And then we will pass the turn, giving a treasure to Alela because we drew. Alela gets a treasure. At the end of Korvold's turn, we'll sacrifice 4 treasures to cast Chemister's Insight to draw 2 cards. We get a Witching Wheel and a Plains, then we'll untap. We'll play the Plains. We'll play the Witching Well. It enters the battlefield. We get another fairy. We'll use this token here to track how many fairies we have. One of them is equipped. We'll scry 2. We put the Orzhov Guildgate on the bottom, and we'll put the Frogify on top. We will attack Chulane with the Massacre Fairy. We'll attack Sir Gwyn with Alela. We'll attack Korvold with the Empyrean Eagle. Sir Gwyn declines to block and will take 3 to go down to 20. Chulane cannot block and will be eradicated. Korvold will take 2 and go to 30. Split up these fairies now. We'll spend 3 mana to look at this tile. Gold-laden Shipwreck at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token. We'll spend 2 more mana to play the Corridor Monitor, untapping Alela. A lifelink should also trigger it, so we'll gain 3 life to go up to 14. And that is an artifact, so we'll get another fairy, another one that's not equipped, so we're at 2 fairies now. And then we will spend 3 more to look at this tile. It's Placate the Raptors. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, and we'll put our blocking token here. Sir Gwyn will sacrifice the Bell of the Brawl. Korvold will sacrifice the Paradise Druid. We'll draw a card and gain a life. If we draw this, we cannot pay, so Alela will get a treasure token and we'll gain a life to go up to 31. Alela gets a treasure, and then we'll end the turn, we'll get another treasure. And then we will pass to Sir Gwyn. Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, gets a Knight's Charge. We will pay the 2 mana. We'll pay 1 mana to play the Colossus Hammer. We'll pay 3 mana to play the Knight's Charge. The Colossus Hammer is an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying, and it costs 8 to equip. Knight's Charge is whenever a knight you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then for 6 white and black, sacrifice the Knight's Charge, return all knight creatures, cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then we will attack Korvold with the Silverwing Squadron, creating 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance. Korvold takes 1 and goes to 30. Here are our knights. The Korvold will lose another knight from the trigger, going down to 29. Alela will lose 1 from the trigger, going down to 13. And Sir Gwyn will gain 1 life to go up to 21. Sir Gwyn will spend 1 mana to look at this tile, to study the 9 rivers again, and then we will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, Korvold will tap 1, sacrificing the Thrashing Brontodon to destroy the mace. The Mace of the Valiant goes down. Korvold untaps. Korvold draws, gets a Woodland Champion. Korvold will spend 4 and cast the Golgari Finebroker. It's a 3/4 Elf Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, return a target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. We'll put the Thrashing Brontodon back into our hand. And we'll pay for Alela's tax. And then we will pass the turn. At the end of Alela's turn, they'll tap the command tower for blue, sacrifice both treasures, sacrifice the Witching Well to draw 2 cards. Alela will draw a Kaya's Wrath and a Frogify, and then Alela will untap. Alela will draw, getting an Angelic Exaltation. We'll pay a blue and a white to Frogify the Silverwing Squadron, making it a 1/1 frog and losing all abilities. Then we'll spend 4 mana to play Angelic Exaltation. It's an enchantment. We'll get another fairy token. And whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. We're going to attack Sir Gwyn with Alela by itself. We control a total of 7 creatures, so Sir Gwyn becomes a 10/10 lifelink flying Death Touch. Sir Gwyn can't do much about that. We'll take 10 and go to 11. And Alela will get 10 and go to 23. This will fall off. Alela will spend 3 more to look at another tile. We'll get Scrolls of Escanta. Each player draws 2 cards and then your opponents discard 2 cards. So we'll draw 2 cards. We get an Emergence Zone and an Island. I don't think we played a land this turn, so we'll go ahead and play the Emergence Zone. Sir Gwyn draws 2. Draws a D-Spark and a Fireborn Knight, and cannot pay, so Alela will get 2 treasure tokens. And then must discard 2, so we will discard the Fireborn Knight and Integrity Intervention. Korvold draws 2. We get a Command Tower and a Mayhem Devil, and we'll discard 2, discarding the Blood-Soaked Altar and the Ingraph. And Alela will get 2 more treasure tokens. Alela gets 4 treasure tokens, which we'll immediately sacrifice. And spend 2 here to look at this tile. It is Ceratops Stampede. Keep until your next turn. Whenever a creature attacks a player other than you, that creature gains double strike until end of turn. We'll create a treasure token. And then we will pass the turn. Sir Gwyn untaps. Alright, we'll use Study the 9 Rivers. Also, the Pirate's Market should have went to Alela. And we'll look at the top 4 cards and put 1 into our hand. I guess we'll put the Icon of Ancestry into our hand, put the rest at the bottom. We don't have to pay because that wasn't our draw step. And then we'll pay the 2 to keep Alela from getting a treasure. We'll pay 3 and we'll play the Icon of Ancestry. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We'll choose Knight. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1, so all of our Knights are +1/+1. So we have 2 3/3s, and then you can pay 3, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then we will pass the turn. Korvold will untap. Korvold will draw. We get a Rhythm of the Wild. We'll play the Command Tower. We'll spend 2 mana to prevent Alela from drawing. We'll spend 3 mana to play the Thrashing Brontodon. And then we're going to pass the turn. Alela untaps. Alela draws, gets an Evolving Wilds. We'll play the Island. And then we will spend 3 mana to look at this tile. It says, at the beginning of your end step, create a Saproling token. And then we'll spend 6 mana to look at this tile. It says, rise from the depth, put the top 6 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then search your graveyard for a number of creature cards whose total power is 6 or less and put them onto the battlefield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are no creature cards added to the battlefield. And then we are going to add... we could put Massacre Girl on the battlefield, but I think we have a stronger position without her. And so we're not going to do that. We'll put a blocking tile on this one over here. And then we'll go to attacks, attacking Sir Gwyn with Alela for a total of 10 damage again. Sir Gwyn will tap and then cast Despark, targeting Alela, exiling her. It says exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Alela goes back to the command zone. We'll go to our end step. We'll get a treasure. We'll get a Saproling. We'll discard the Evolving Wilds and we'll draw a new card, which is an Arcanist Owl, and then Alela will pass the turn. Alright, Sir Gwyn untaps, draws, gets a Plains. We will give Alela a treasure, so we don't have to pay the tithe, and then we will play the Plains, and we'll tap 8 mana to bring out Sir Gwyn. Now our knights have equip 0, so then we will equip the Colossus Hammer on one of these knights, and we'll equip the Shining Armor on the other knight, and then we will attack Alela with the Colossus Hammer equipped Vigilant Knight, and it's attacking as a 12/12. We'll drain 1 from each opponent, so Gwyn will get 1 life to go to 12. Alela will lose 1 to go to 22. Korvold will lose 1 to go to 26. It's actually attacking against the 13/13 because of the icon, and we will just chump it with the Saproling token. We'll lose the Saproling token. And then Sir Gwyn will tap the Arcane Signet for black and cast the Filemire Knight, which is a zombie knight. And then we will use Sir Gwyn to re-equip the Colossus Hammer to the Filemire Knight. Oh, and we have to draw a card and lose 1 life because of Sir Gwyn's when we attack. So we draw the Crystal Slipper and we lose a life, and we give Elaine another treasure token, and then Sir Gwyn will pass the turn. Korvold then taps. Korvold draws, gets a Leyline Prowler. Korvold will spend 5 mana to cast Sir Conrad the Grim. He is a 5/4 human knight. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. And for 1 and a black, each player puts a top card of their library into their graveyard. And then Korvold doesn't really have a way of getting in, and so we will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws. Oh, we'll also get a treasure from Korvold. We'll pay 3 to grab this tile. It is throw other board. It says destroy target creature you don't control. So we will destroy Sir Gwyn. Sir Gwyn dies, and that triggers Sir Conrad, and so Sir Gwyn will lose a life, and Sir Gwyn will go back into the command zone. Alela will lose a life, go to 21. Alela will then spend 3 more to look at this tile, which is, I can't take it with you. The next time opponent leaves the game, draw 2 cards and create 4 treasure tokens. And then we'll spend 6 more mana to take a look at this tile, which is Weather the Storm. Each player discards their hand. Each opponent draws 4 cards. You draw 7 cards and untap all the lands you control. So we'll discard these 3 cards. Sir Gwyn discards the Crystal Slipper, draws 4. Gets a Knight of the Ebon Legion, Mountain, and Sky Knight Vanguard. Korvold discards all of these cards and draws 4, getting a Arcane Signet, Goblin Crater Maker, Rapacious Dragon, and Forest. Alela draws 7, getting a Swamp, Bloodsoaked Altar, Mortify, Bag of Holding, Dimir Guildgate, Law Mage's Binding, and Animating Fairy. And then we'll untap all of our lands. We'll play the Swamp. We'll spend 6 mana to grab these 2 3s, getting us a Deep Root Tree at the beginning of your end step. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control and an Unwitting Apprentice. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. We'll gain control of the Foulmire Knight, which has the Colossus Hammer attached to it. And then we'll go to attacks. We'll attack Sir Gwyn with the Empyrean Eagle and all 4 2/2 fairies. And we'll attack Korvold with the Foulmire Knight that's equipped with the Colossus Hammer. Korvold will chump the Colossus Hammer with the Golgari Finebroker. Sir Gwyn has no recourse and will take 10 damage in the air and perish. The Finebroker dies, which triggers Moldavine Reclamation and Sir Conrad the Grim. So we will draw a card, which is a forest, and we will pay 2 so that Alela doesn't get another treasure. And then we will gain a life to go up to 27. And then Sir Conrad will trigger, dealing 1 damage to Alela. Alela takes 1 and goes to 20. And then Alela will spend 6 more mana to take this tile here, which is Orzak of the Golden City. When you reveal this tile, or take it from another player, draw 2 cards. We'll draw 2 cards. We get a Tranquil Cove and a Plains. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw 2 cards and deal 3 damage to each opponent. Now we are going to cast for 3 mana, sacrificing 3 treasures, the Animating Fairy as a sorcery, the adventure Bring to Life. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature, put 4 counters on it. We'll make the Golden Egg a 0/0 with 4 counters, so now it is a 4/4. And then we will spend another 3, sacrificing the Command Tower and 2 treasures, to cast the Animating Fairy as a creature as well. It is now 3/3 because of the Empyrean Eagle. And the next time the opponent leaves the game, we draw 2 treasures and create 4 tokens. So we'll draw 2 treasures. We have Sephara Sky's Blade and Workshop Elders here. And we'll create 4 treasure tokens. So here's our 4 treasure tokens. And then we are going to go to our end step. We'll get another treasure token from the Deep Root Tree. We'll get a Sapling token. And we'll put a +1/+1 counter on the Animating Fairy, making it a 4/4 flyer. And then we will discard down 2 cards. We'll drop the Tranquil Cove and we'll drop the Dimir Guildgate. And then Alela will pass the turn. Korvold untaps. Korvold draws, gets a forest. We'll play the forest. We'll spend 5 mana and cast Korvold the Fey Cursed King. It is a 4/4 legendary creature dragon noble with flying. Whenever Korvold the Fey Cursed King enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. We'll sacrifice this food. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. So we'll put a counter here, we'll draw a card, we'll give a treasure to Alela. And then we'll spend 2 mana to cast the Arcane Signet. And Korvold, we'll get another +1/+1 counter because of the Sails Unfurled. And it has haste, but we are not going to attack. And we will pass the turn. Alela untaps. We go to upkeep. That triggers Orzak of the Golden City. We'll draw 2 cards and deal 3 damage to Korvold. We'll draw a island and a swamp. Korvold takes 3 to go to 24. Alela will then go to the regular draw step and draw a Shine Chaser. We will play the swamp. We'll spend 3 and mortify Korvold, that is destroy target creature or enchantment. Korvold dies, returns to the command zone, and we will draw a card, gain a life. Here's our card, it's a forest, we gain a life. We will give Alela a token, and then we will deal 1 damage to Alela through Sir Conrad. Alela takes 1 and goes to 19. We will pay 7 mana to play Sephara Sky's Blade. She is a 7/7 legendary creature angel with flying and lifelink, and other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. And then we will attack Korvold with all 4 2/2 fairies, the Empyrean Eagle, the 4/4 animating fairy, the golden egg, for 18 damage total. Korvold will sacrifice the Thrashing Brontodon to destroy the golden egg, which will get us a life and draw us a card that gets us a forest, gets us up to 16. We'll give Alela another treasure, and that'll cause 1 damage to Alela through Sir Conrad. Alela takes 1 and goes to 18. The golden egg goes down. Korvold takes 14 in the air and goes down to 12. Alela will spend 1 and cast the Bag of Holding. Alela will spend 3 and cast the Shine Chaser, a 2/2 fairy with flying and vigilance. It gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact, and +1/+1 as long as you control an enchantment. We have both, so it's +2/+2, plus another +1/+1 because of the Empyrean Eagle, making it a 4/4 flying vigilance, indestructible. And then we'll sacrifice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 treasures to cast the Workshop Elders, which is a 4/4 human artificer. Artifact creatures you control have flying. At the beginning of combat your turn, you may have target non-creature artifact you control become a 0/0 artifact creature. If you do, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it, and then we will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, we will get a treasure token, we'll get a +1/+1 counter, which we will put onto the corridor monitor, and we will get a Sapperling, and that will be it. Korvold untaps. Korvold draws, gets a Pollenbright Druid. We will play a forest. We'll spend 5 mana and play the Rapacious Dragon. It is a 3/3 dragon with flying. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Here's our treasure. We'll play the Goblin Crater Maker. It's a 2/2 Goblin Warrior, and you can pay 1 to sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to a target creature or destroy a target colorless non-land permanent. And we will pay, we'll give Alela another treasure. And we'll pay 2 more mana to play the Pollenbright Druid, and it will get a counter to itself. And then we will pass the turn. Alela untaps, draws 2 during the upkeep, drawing a Heraldic Banner and a Swamp. And then we'll draw another one and deal 3 damage to Korvold. Korvold takes 3 and goes to 9. Alela will play the Plains. We will tap 3 mana to play the Heraldic Banner. It says, as Heraldic Banner enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures you control the chosen color get +1/+0. We'll choose blue, making all of our blue creatures +1/+0. We'll spend 3 more mana to play the Lawn Mage's Binding, targeting the Rapacious Dragon. It says flash enchanted creature can't attack, block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. And then I think we just go in for the win. We attack with our fairies. We'll attack with the Shine Chaser. We'll attack with Safari Sky's Blade. We'll attack with the Empyrean Eagle and the Animating Fairy, as well as the Corridor Monitor, because all of these are flying for a gigantic pile of damage. I'm not even going to bother to count, because that's more than enough to kill Korvold. So Korvold dies, and Alela wins the game. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comments below. If I made any major rules or play errors, also let me know. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.